I have noticed that, many of you have signed in, which we appreciate. We would like everyone to sign in. You don't absolutely have to, but if you intend to speak at the meeting or potentially speak, you do need to sign in, just to make that clear. So, with that, I'm going to call this meeting to order. I want to do a quick note that I've managed to acquire a pretty decent head cold. It's not the modern plague, it's just a cold. So if I'm not my usual charming and witty self between congestion and cold medicine, that would be why. So the more I talk, the more I try to project, the more likely it is I try to cough. So I'm going to give Director McMaster, who's our chair, or our vice chair of the board, fair warning that at some point I may just hand the gavel to him and let him conduct the meeting.
Just stick it out.
But we will see how it goes. So with that, as Kat will note that we're all here. And are there any additions to the agenda by any board members or from the staff? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Bart.
Sorry.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. That doesn't mean we may not jump one thing around. We have BMX way down here at the bottom. I know there are BMX people here, so we probably do that out of order near the top so they can go home. Approval of the consent agenda. For those not familiar, the consent agenda is boring stuff, frankly, the minutes from the last meeting, bills payable, that kind of stuff that we don't talk about in detail unless a board member wants to pull something off of the consent agenda, talk about it individually. So is there any item that somebody wants to pull off? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move we approve the consent agenda as amended, as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
And that's seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Need one more person to say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Congestion.
All right. Public participation, we have no one formally signed up. Since I'm aware that there are BMX people here, we will do them now and first. I did talk both on the phone and via text message to Ryan a couple different times over the last month. So let me say this before you all speak. We are aware of the situation. I don't want to sound like I'm just using a cliche here. We are looking into it. We've been a little handicapped. Our legal counsel, John Bridges, was not only on vacation, he was out of the country. He got back about 10 days ago. He has been diligently working, looking into stuff. Because he is an attorney, he wants paperwork and documentation and stuff. And so we're doing the best we can. The district's relationship with the BMX organizations over the years has always been a little informal, a little haphazard, I think was the phrase I used with Ryan. So sometimes John will ask for something and staff can find it. Sometimes staff can't find it. Sometimes it just doesn't exist and we have to go to a third party trying to find it. So that's sort of delayed things a bit, but we are doing the best we can, and things should move much more quickly now that John is here and working on it. Some of the things we're looking at involve potential legal issues, and so we are handicapped a bit about how much we can say about some things. So I'm trying to cover everything up, just letting folks know that's what's happening. So with that, we're happy to hear you. You get 3 minutes apiece. Please don't ramble forever. We have a long agenda tonight, and Ryan, I'll call on you because I know you're here.
All right.
And anybody else can go after
Clock
that.
start. All right.
We're not in the city, we don't have a clock that actually counts down.
Got it.
Just try to,
Stand here. Do I need to go somewhere?
you don't even have to stand.
All right. Well, I'll stand so everybody can hear.
Can you state your name for the record?
Ryan Storfa, former maybe current secretary treasurer of Chehalis Valley BMX. Also team manager of the race team there. Also assistant track operator at the track. I've been in those roles for about 3 years. Prior to that, my family started at the track in about 2018 when my kids started to race. It's a volunteer-based sport, so at the time we didn't have very good attendance, so almost out of necessity, we came off the sidelines and started helping. Just for background, you probably need 4 to 5 volunteers minimum per race to actually run a race, and preferably more like 8 to 10. And so that's kind of the need at the time. The following year, I took on a bigger leadership role and stepped into more of the maintenance of the track. Paul Stump, who was the track operator in 2019, put me on a lot of the board meetings, so I got to witness those board meetings happening. It was a pretty cordial affair. We'd meet at a pizza parlor and talk about track business and what we were going to do next, things like that. At the end of 2019, he had to step down for family reasons. Richard Klass took over. So this would be fall 2019 going into 2020. There hasn't been any meetings, any elections of any kind, so clearly spelled out in the bylaws, but they just haven't happened. I was not aware of the bylaws until last summer. Did not necessarily know that we had governing documents. I was a little bit naive in my secretary role, but I did discover them this summer. So that's kind of where we were. I guess I'll add, the attendance was helped quite a bit from COVID. So we started out at about 30 people per race in 2018. By the time we got through COVID, we're averaging about 55 participants per race. We were on a roll this winter. We had 4 races this winter for the first time ever in the history of the track, and averaged 70 people per race at those. Had one that was almost 90. We had some pretty good recruiting efforts going on this spring. 2 beginner leagues in June. Had 26 people at those, and I think through the end of June we had almost 50 new members signed up to the track. We were second in the state behind Eugene. They are racing year round. They've done 37 races to that point, and we've done 9. So we've gotten almost 50 new members from 9 races. So we had the beginner leagues. They went well. After that, we almost immediately shut down for construction. That was basically when Richard fired me from the track, from the team, from the organization. So up to that point, my role in the organization was effectively, I did scoring at every race, a lot of track maintenance, but probably most importantly, I did community outreach, all social media. Anytime somebody emailed the track asking about what is this sport, how can I do it, I was the person that was replying. Like I said, I managed the track team, took it from 8 people in 2018 to up to about 60 people early this year. As soon as I was let go, that outreach effectively stopped. So since July, the last 3 months, 5 new people have joined the track. 3 of those have been brothers and or parents of existing riders, so effectively two new families to the track. One of those families raced once, the other one raced twice. There hasn't really been any outreach to speak of whatsoever. The team has gone from 60 people down to maybe 5 now wearing the jersey. About 30 of them have migrated to another team in the area. A good chunk have just stopped coming because they aren't aware of that we're actually racing. I had somebody actually email me today, personally on my email account, saying, hey, what are we racing this week? Because they have no idea, right? It's been posted, but that's just the habit people got into, is they were messaging me to find out if we were racing. So anyway, in addition to the decreased attendance, I guess to step back again, after the new member decline, it's really hit actual race attendance. We had a race this last Tuesday with 20, 25 people, something like that. We haven't had a race with attendance that low since 2018. And it was really apparent in the novice, the new rider motos. I think there was 5 new riders total in the race. Not the best situation when you're forcing them into riding with experts, but I don't want to make this totally negative because I think we can get back to where we were. Myself and a lot of the people here just got back from Port Angeles, regional BMX finals up there, and to say that we were impressed with that organization is an understatement. You drive through the community there, and there's probably 10 signs up in local businesses welcoming the BMX racers to town, right? You show up at those races, and just the local everyday races, not the regional championships, local everyday races get 150 people every night, twice a week. That race in particular that we were at had 600 participants and their families. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I think I might be in the wrong meeting.
Oh,
I thought I was coming to a meeting about the horse trails.
I think they are.
It's not
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm at a BMX
Racing
meeting.
on the horse trail?
No,
No.
no.
Oh, okay, so
Totally
I'm,
separate.
that's.
Okay, I thought I was in the wrong
I
meeting.
thought I was in the wrong meeting too, so
Oh,
you're
I'm
not
sorry.
racing on horse trails.
No.
No.
Can I
Oh.
interject for a second?
There's probably
Okay,
not.
I'm confused.
I implied this is all about.
Okay. We'll work on the online link. Yeah, we have several topics of discussion tonight for everyone. Right now, we're talking about BMX. We'll be talking about horses here in a bit.
And that's located at Ewing Young Park.
Okay.
Not a
Sorry.
track, not
Track.
Sorry, not clear, yeah, thanks.
All right. Port Angeles, yeah, so that facility is amazing. Probably thousands of hotel rooms got rented that weekend. The way you get that is by having that community involved in the track. They were awarded the regional finals. And I should call out that the town of Port Angeles has 23,000 people, and there's nothing nearby. Seattle Tacoma is 2 hours away. Newburgh has 20,000 people, and we've got Portland Metro half an hour away. So there's zero reason that we shouldn't be just like that track. And I think we can get there. We were well on the way of getting there, but we got a little bit derailed this year. So I think what we need from the board is anybody stepping in as an authority figure, reminding Richard that he has to abide by the bylaws that govern the organization that he's appointed himself head of. And there's also state and federal laws that need to be followed. So we're just looking for some intermediary, any intermediary to step in and, lend an authority figure to the track, so. I think that's, yeah.
Okay, all right. Looks like
That's all.
the gentleman next to you needs to practice a little more, maybe?
Yeah, or a little less.
Yeah, he fell off a horse.
Okay, you need to sit over here. So again, we're aware of this. I wish I had a resolution for you tonight. I would ask you to be patient. I think that, by next month's meeting, we should know a whole lot more than we do. We have to kind of determine, what authority we have. Some of this, there's the relationship between the organization and us. Some of this is an internal issue within your organization that we may necessarily not have authority over. And that there's a lot of, things that coalesce there. So, anyone else wish to speak before I have board comments or questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna give and speak for the BMX too.
Yes, go ahead, identify yourself.
Sean Russell, CV, BMX, Ewing Young. So last Thursday, I showed up to the track with my boy. He wanted to practice. He was getting his riding gear on, and Richard Clash showed up on his motorcycle, drove right past us, immediately jumped off his motorcycle, runs up into the snack shack and pulls out some track clotheslines and throws them up. And then as he's rolling out to the park, he yells down at him, "Track's closed, Deegan." So he also parked in what we believe is a handicap spot, but is not marked very well. At some of our decent sized races, it's a handicap spot, and he makes sure we know that. But other times, it's just his personal spot. Makes people move out of it. Gets mad when we're there. He'll cry about it to people. Can't believe that certain people are parking in that spot. We all know it's his spot. Also, his dog is running around off his leash, got into my food and into my chicken, and we're on pins and needles. There's not a lot we can do or say to him without looking at a 1-year suspension from USA BMX, which means he doesn't get to race that track or other tracks for a year. And I can't have that. So I'm sitting there just biting my tongue while his dog's going through my chicken, right? Like eating out of my bag. Like, what can I do about this guy's dog running around off his leash all the time? So it's a bad situation to be in a spot where you're in a public area and you have one guy just holding you down. He's also got the track Facebook page, which he's using for political purposes, while he's deleting comments that we put on there, such as, "When's our next board meeting?" They get deleted, that person gets banned. That's really all I got to say about it. I was here last month. I think I said enough then, but this is a new situation, and it's hard. It's hard to take my kid to a track and into an environment like that where I'm trying to raise him, he's trying to have fun. At the same time, I'm just stuck there. And I can't go up to registration because I don't want any contention between us where I'm gonna have any chance of getting suspended or thrown off that track or that property.
Yeah, I say what I said last month, you know, I appreciate all the work, all the volunteers do. It's a horrible thing when adults start fighting and it gets in the way of kids participating. And again, it's just circumstances with John being out of the country that we couldn't really get on this as quickly as we would have liked. And we are diligently looking into it now. I don't know, Jim had a question. I want to make sure Casey has a chance to speak if he wants to. So, Jim?
I just have a comment in that, when I was here and we built the BMX course and many operators after that while I was here, I've always appreciated the BMX community doing the maintenance and working on that facility. I know that, you know, we got a grant initially to build it, and then it's morphed a few times in different ways. But I can tell you that a lot of the volunteers, such as yourself, you know, have put a lot into that, and I know that the district appreciates that. So I just wanted you to know that from my standpoint. We have had issues, or I did have issues when I was a supervisor with different organizations before this one, not communicating, not talking, so hopefully we can improve on that, so. That's what I gotta say.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Casey, do you have anything to add?
Just that John has all the documents, he needs to kind of review that, and
Louder, please.
John has all the documents needed to review that. And I won't comment on anything that I see, but there's gonna have to be some decisions by the board of the Channel Valley BMX to do something to either come together or dissolve.
All right, well, so again, appreciate you coming. We do hear you. Please be patient, and we'll have much more to say by next month's board meeting.
Is there a handicap spot at that park?
Yes.
Yes,
There
it
should be.
Should be.
It's not marked very well.
We're absolutely
Yeah,
looking at that.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's a personal parking spot.
Should be a sign up.
Yeah, though there's a spot, you can kind of see it, it's faded pretty well, but there's no sign. There's no penalty sign put up or anything like that.
I can guarantee you that Brian will go down and check that out. All right, so thank you for coming. I'd like to tell folks that, you know, you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. We're not offended if you don't. All right, apparently we have equestrian folks here. So who would like to speak on that first? Have a volunteer in the back.
Oh, volunteer, okay.
Let us know
I
who
beat
you
to
are.
it. That's good. My name is Ryan, just like the other gentleman, and maybe it's a theme this evening. I live on the
We
park.
need your last name too.
It's Reinhofer.
Okay, thanks.
I live on the park. I've been up there about 7 years and enjoy the amazing trails weekly, if not every day. And I just have some questions and concerns, and hopefully can get some clarification. It was my understanding that the trails were deemed equestrian, riding, hiking, and that was the intent. About 1.5 years ago, some handmade signs went up on the east side of Parrot Mountain saying no horses, which was a bit of a surprise, because I had not seen or heard anything of that nature, but respected the sign, hasn't gone on the east side, and walked over there, noticed biking trails and little obstacles, things not suitable for horses or people that I could tell, but for bikes. And since that 1.5 years, I think there's been a division, and most horse people, to my knowledge, have stopped going on that side of the park, but not understanding why. I noticed over the last couple of weeks that bike signs have now reached over to the west side, all the way up to my home, which I live right by Parrot Mountain in Smith, all the way down through the trails. And they don't look as homemade, but they posted bike events. I've also noticed, since I ride out there pretty much every day, bike tracks in and all around the trails. And then I've experienced riding my horses and several different groups, small and large. I guess to quantify that, smallest has been one person, the largest has been upwards of 30 riders.
Bicycle riders?
Pardon?
Bikes.
On bicycles, yes, on the horse trails, yes. I, knock on wood, I don't wanna be like this gentleman with a broken arm. Sorry, I'm picking on you. I'm a very proficient rider, and I have very steadfast horses, and they spooked. My horses tend to be upwards of 2,000 pounds. And some of the cyclists have been nice and apologetic, some have not. Some of the larger groups consisted of children, which I have a lot of concerns for safety of minors and the trails. If we've all been out there, there's not a lot of line of sight, there's a lot of inclines, there's a lot of switchbacks, there's a lot of ravines, and horses go fast up, bicycles go fast down. I just have a lot of confusion on where things are going, what's happening with the east side versus the west side, why are there being bike event signs posted, but nothing, at least for me in the Society of Riding and the Equestrians, that's a surprise. And I thought the whole intent was, the gift was to stay equestrian. So I guess I have a couple layers of questions as to what the process is, where are things going, and how can we have a voice to keep it equestrian?
Okay, so before I ask staff to comment, let's go ahead and hear from other folks so we get all of the
I'm
concerns
Vicki
out
Dixon, I live
first.
on Lad Hill Road, I've been up there 41 years. We bought part of our property from Ralph O'Meally, he was a really good friend of Crystal Riding, and she always wanted the horses there. Always wanted the horses there, never wanted the bicycles there on either side. And it's one of the few areas anymore that horses can ride, and there are enough bikes all over the roads, all over the streets. It's just one place you should just, have either horse hours are X to X and bike hours are, Y to Z. Don't have it hard for it to be a multi-use park. Walkers are fine, but the bikers will probably say the same thing that the horse people say. They do different things to the trails. The bikes dig gouges and the horses leave road apples. And I would think you'd wanna keep what Riley's wanted to have happen to that. And I'm sure, there are not too many people, I don't know how many people that have lived here that long to know that's what she wanted.
Absolutely.
She didn't, she loved to watch the horses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone else, ma'am in the back?
Hi, my name's Alice
You're
Fox,
next.
and I've also been riding there for 20 years. When we used to pay money and have a fob to get in.
You're still up.
But, and everybody's reflected my concerns on that, but my question is, communication between you folks and us has been lousy. And I've signed up several times to get some information, and finally, somebody here, told me the meeting tonight, I had 2 hours notice. I think this should be a public meeting, it's not just for the bikers, it should be for the horse people too. And 2 hours notice doesn't do that.
Okay, so this is a public meeting, we meet monthly. Generally, it's the fourth Thursday of the month. It happens to be the 5th this month, which is an oddity, but that was because,
How would I know that?
well, it's on our website. It's always been the fourth Thursday of the month. I've been on this board 31 years, it's been the fourth Thursday of the month. So that's, this, ma'am.
Well, I'll just say that, there used to be in the old days, because I've been riding up there for 20 years also.
Say who you are.
Oh, I'm Leslie Campbell. I'm an equestrian.
Thank you.
I used to get email notifications of these meetings. I don't know when it stopped, and I've spoken with Kat, and Kat very kindly called me back today and left a nice voice message. Thank you, Kat, if you're in the room, I don't know who you are.
I'm over here.
There you are, thank you. Hi. because, yes, I do look on the website and the meeting date and time did change, and so I called to get a verification, and I spoke with the director of parks to make sure that was still the case. But, I'd say probably, at the beginning of the idea when the Parks District obtained, the Crystal, the Bob Riley Crystal Park, the communication was better. And I would also like to have an answer to how did the whole bike, community come in, how did that happen? And I would love to be more a part of the future of the park, because Crystal, when we spoke, when she was still alive, her intention was to have it be an equestrian park and a farmstead that people could refer to through their historical narratives for this area. And so I just think that's been lost over the years, and it really is a beautiful farmhouse. Lots of money went into it to refurbish it, and the trails have been amazingly maintained. But I do agree that bikes and equestrian riders are not compatible. It's very dangerous. And, well, I ride at Mission State Park and all the other parks too. I was at MacGyver this week, and, my horses, I've had him for 17 years, and he spooks. Even if a pedestrian is there and hasn't said anything or made a sound. And this is a really solid trail horse. So it is just a matter of time before someone is going to get in trouble. And I'm not saying to eliminate the bikers, because we're citizens and we all donate and give money through taxes for these wonderful facilities. But maybe having certain days for biking and certain days for equestrians might be a good answer.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak?
I'm Claire.
So
There's somebody behind you.
the lady behind you is first, you'll be next.
Okay, I just wanna chime in on.
I need your name, please.
Ann Dufay,
Thank you.
Lad Hill Road. Horse owner, writer. I was gonna take my grandkids up there, last month, and then I heard about the bikes. And I couldn't, it's too dangerous. And so I need you all to understand the hazards that those are some of those, there's blind, it's like, I understand why bikes would love it. It's like uphill, downhill, sharp turns that you could go really fast, and you come around one of those corners really fast, and there's a little kid on a horse right there, and someone is going to be very badly injured. It's really, really unsafe. And I was sad because it's the closest, I took them to Mission. So there are places I can go, like an hour haul from here, and it's 10 minutes from my house to this part, and it's ridiculous that I don't feel like it's safe to take kids there. I would not, any parent of a child on a horse, I would never recommend they go there at this point. It's not safe.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am?
My name is Claire Sands, and I was part of the equestrian community when I boarded my horse at a farm that was on and adjacent to the lands of Bob and Crystal Riley. And before it was public, before Crystal died, Bob was still alive, and we called him Uncle Bob because he was like family to all of us who rode. He took pride in every spring going through, and especially on the east side, taking his big equipment and maintaining those trails for us with no input from us. That was just expected. He did some work on the west side, but we pitched in a lot for that as well when we would ride. And we had access to many more places that were also private lands that they gave us permission to ride. And I, maybe too much information, but I suffer from significant mental health issues. And being able to go out there in an undisturbed natural environment saved my life. And being able to participate with my horse because of my mental illness, I can't work very effectively, and so I don't have a lot of money to be able to have the resources to have a big enough vehicle to haul a horse trailer And so being able to have something that was natural and available and safe for horses to be on in quiet solitude was something that was paramount to my recovery from some really significant issues. And that's the other thing that I wanted to say is, you know, in today's world, it's really funny, and prices have gotten really expensive for gas, and most of the places that horse people have to experience the outdoors on trails, people have to haul long distances to, so it's very expensive. And it becomes harder and harder for people to enjoy the parks that aren't having this problem of, you know, they've already been established and set up. And I know that there are places that work for multi-use, and you know, kudos for that. But this is not one of the places that it's safe to do so because it is technically challenging. And of course, that's probably the draw for people who are cyclists. But having the two entities together, especially because neither of us understand what the other's goals or wishes are, becomes a problem. Bikes do make terrible ruts, which causes waterways to come in, and the water runoff causes terrible erosions. Horses poop. I always tell all my friends, if you ride out on a trail, make sure to keep your horse moving. It's my big soapbox things. Horses that drop individual meadow muffins along the way, the birds come in and you can't see it 2 days later. Or if they can't do that, pull over. But that's neither here nor there. Poop goes away, ruts and erosion don't, without a lot of extra maintenance. But mainly, it's really being a public force. There's a lot of liability for having the two things together because of the safety issue. You know, I know bikers might say, well, you should be able to control your horse, but it's like someone with a 2-year-old, ever saying, you know, your child shouldn't cry if someone's coming up behind them and frightening them. They have a mind of their own, only they're 1,200 pounds, and they're prey animals, so they have a very fast fight-flight reaction.
My issue is, my horses don't spook.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am, you need to wait for me to call.
Okay.
And this lady had her hand up first.
Sorry, Crystal. Next. Tamara Bush Johnson. I've lived on Lad Hill Road for over 40 years up here, and I've been riding Crystal Riley's, you know, from Lad Hill, actually. I could go through and
You used to be able to do
connect with
that.
it, remember? Yeah, it was great. To be able to connect without even trailering at all from Lad Hill to Crystal's. And remembering conversations, that's what she wanted, was to be able to have a place for everyone in our area here to be able to enjoy with horses. Horses are a flight animal. You know, they are alert. If you're in the front, they look for spooks, you know, on their trail. And the back horse is responsible for anything coming up behind them. So when a biker comes around the corner suddenly, it's not the biker's fault. They're enjoying their, you know, outing too. I love to bike. But any sudden motion like that will put that horse into motion. Almost any horse, because that's their responsibility, being that back horse, is to protect the horses up front. And if there's something coming up fast, I have been on trails before with mixed trails. People have been bucked off, hurt, injured, because the bikes practically go up the rear end of the horse coming around the corner so fast. And it's just cannot be mixed. Just too many dangers. People don't want to take their kids anymore because of that. And I'm getting older, and I don't want to be able to be a rodeo queen anymore. I like to be able to have a younger horse, and so I am starting like from scratch, making sure that I ride with her horse, who's a steady Eddie with it, that no horse is beyond spooking when something suddenly comes up behind them. And that's what we're dealing with.
I would say that, okay, again, I've been there for years, I don't know, it's not necessarily the horses spooking the bike, some of them do spook the bikes, yes. But it's the ruts, and it is, if we're sharing the bicyclers, they tend to fly up behind you. And not that they're sneaking up on the horses, it's not real courteous, and it doesn't seem like a good mixed use. And I'm sure the bicyclers get hurt as often or more often than the horse people. But the other parks tend to have on-site people there all the time. 11 Mission does, the state parks have that. So the mixed use isn't quite as bad, but it doesn't seem like, maybe we could work a way to share it.
Okay, I'm anxious to have our staff comment here, but I want to give everybody their chance. This lady standing in the back, you're next.
Tracy Irway, I live on McConnell Road, so I'm at the bottom of the hill, below you all. I've been here 17 years, and there are a lot of issues here that everyone has said, the condition of the trails if they're shared, the problem with the danger for horseback riders. I have a horse that is not a steady Eddie. I would like the chance to be able to school and make him a good trail horse. But I am curious, I feel like this is driven because there are more bikers than horses. And I don't know if that's part of what's happening here. It's pretty darn easy to put a bike on the top of your car and take off and go anywhere. I could have brought mine today. If I was gonna bring my horse, I'd still be in the stable right now, and it would take a lot longer,
Thank you for not all of you bringing your horse.
But this is a horse community, and it has been, and I think there's some respect due there. So that's my comment.
Okay.
I'd like
Like
to,
Ma'am, and
one
then
person each is.
You and
I'd just like to go back to, I think, Keena Ramsey. I don't live on the mountain. I am one of those people that came to use the trails before it was taken over. Poker rides and that kind of stuff, so I knew that. But anyway, my concern is that I went to all the meetings before COVID. So when it first came up and we were meeting down here, and we were meeting up at the farmhouse and stuff, my understanding was that a lot of this issue was resolved, I thought at that time, that we had doing some separation. Now, I like a lot of people, I don't know, and I don't really understand it, why would we? The development and the push for the bikes, because my understanding, they're not local people. These are clubs that are coming from West Lynn, Lake Oswego, Wilsonville, I don't know where else, but they're group clubs, like a group racquetball club, or a pickleball club, or whatever, that's coming out of district. Sorry, I'm not picking on you.
Okay, we want them on the horse trails.
this guy can be grouchy, so you want to be grouchy.
That's okay, I'm old and grouchy too, I just don't look it, but I really am. So, it is, I think there's a problem being created with the signs that are up there. There's animosity being created by those of us that rode when the east side was being developed. And Russell said, come over here and ride these trails because I'm putting all these trails and we want you to pound them out. So we rode them for 2 years. I broke my leg and didn't ride for a while. I broke it skiing. It had nothing to do with horses. And so I came back and go, what are all the signs over here? What's going on? And I was told, oh, well, there's one at Crestern that went someplace and we're supposed to. But this is what I'm saying, there's all this weird kind of communication that people don't know what's going on. Last time I rode up there are new signs put up over the top of the signs that said, no bikers, no motorized vehicle. And now there's new signs put up over those signs that say, oh yes, we're letting bike events come in every Thursday. And over the top of the no bike, and I saw somebody taking a picture of it. So we do have some communication and people not being very nice to each other. I was at the meeting, you probably heard me. You're opening up a can of worms. There are people that are trying to follow the rules and are trying to be good. And again, there's just a lot of confusion. I agree with most of the people that are here, that particular terrain does not accommodate the level of activity people potentially want to mix those two together. One mission's easy. You constantly have problems. Talk to people that are at Stubb Stewart or something like that.
Yeah.
They have their own bike area, but the bikes come over. We were there camping and our horses got surprised. It just gonna happen, but I just don't think it's safe, and it's very uncomfortable. It's been a very uncomfortable situation because you don't know what's going on.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am, you've had a turn. I gotta get the people to have a gentleman in the back, and then you're next, and then there was a hand over here too. Sir, yes.
My name is Bob Freshman. I live, excuse me, we live fairly close to the park on Corral Creek Road. We've been there for 22 years. And first of all, I'd like to give a big thumbs up to Russ, who does a lot of the trail maintenance. He is a master with his excavator. He's done a lot to really keep those trails open and accessible, so we do appreciate it. I'm an ex-equestrian. I'm a hiker now. I'm probably at the park, probably at least 5 days a week with my hiking buddy Tilly. And for me, it's just a wonderful place to be able to get to. My wife still rides up there occasionally. She even occasionally rides her mountain bike on the other side of the trail. She's probably the world's slowest mountain biker. But she enjoys being up there as well. I understand, that it was good that there was a separation for the equestrians and the mountain bikers. And I was quite surprised when I saw the bike event signs pop up. To me, I didn't understand what that was about, what the need was for. It basically took it away from anybody who wanted to hike or ride their horse at that time, because it'd be far too dangerous to be out there doing it at that point. So I have great concern. The signage that's up or has been up, I think is quite inadequate. I think you need some permanent, large, very clear signage as to who can go where, as far as that's concerned. And going back to the history of the park, we were able to go up and ride and hike up there 22 years ago. We knew Bob and Crystal, and they allowed us to ride around the perimeter of their fields. They were very gracious about it. They just said, make sure you close the gates, don't ride in the fields, and that was fine. We also were up there when that ill-fated group ran that park for a while and charged exorbitant amount of money. And personally, we were very happy to see CPRD take it over as well.
Tax deductible.
And to see CPRD take it over, we thought that was a very positive thing. I would just like to see, since there is no enforcement up there, I mean, basically people are on the honor system. There's no ranger up there, there's nobody up there saying you can or can't do this. I think effective signage is a good tool to maintain where you want the different groups to be. And when I've queried by email the CPRD staff on what they're going to do, the response has always been zero. The response to information or asking for information is very poor.
Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Sophie Pinkham. I've had a horse up there for about 13 years now. I used to be at the top of Park Mountain where I could ride to the park in 7 minutes. I moved him about 2.5 years ago, so I haven't been to the park in 2.5 years, but now have access to a trailer, so I'm excited to go back. But when I used to ride there, I was lucky if I saw another rider. I never saw any bikes ever, so I mean, obviously there's lots changed in the last 2.5 years since I've ridden up there, but now I'm excited to ride again, and I'm hearing about all the bikes. And I used to race downhill mountain bikes. I love it. Oh well, until I got my horse, that was easier and more fun. But I can understand the fun of whizzing down single track on a bike. But if you're plodding up on a horse with single track, the last thing you want to see is a mountain biker come tearing down, because I mean, I know how fun that is. So if there is so many bikes now, maybe it's a case of certain areas for bikes and some for horses, or different days, but I love them both, but they don't mix. You know, my horse is pretty good, but you know, if someone suddenly comes flying around and if it's a single track, they can't brake in time, the horse can't spin around without banging you into a tree in time, and then it could be pretty bad. But I haven't been there for a while, like I say, I rarely saw another horse, but never a bike, sort of 3 years ago. But, and now luckily I'm on a 10-minute trailer ride up the road, but, so I want to be able to go there, but it sounds like there's a lot of bikes. Maybe, like you say, clearer signage and maybe certain areas for bikes and some for horses or.
This is frankly what I thought we
I'd
had.
just like to tag
so-
on to that. I'm Sally Cutler, and I say no bikes, because somebody, unsuspecting rider, like me, might come on a day where it was like bike day. That, then, you know, there I would be disappointed, or maybe badly injured. So I say no bikes, period. I know some people think, oh, maybe give the biker or cyclist 1 day or 2 days, but I don't know. Who's gonna follow that schedule, really?
Right.
So that's just my 2 cents. I say no cyclists. Because I'm up there a lot too.
Right, and in the middle?
I'm Dana Kemp. I was one of the board members that gave the park, Crystal Valley Park to the foundation. And we had an agreement that that both boards had signed. And there's new board members and probably new staff at the Park and Rec, but I think it might be a good idea to, revisit that document. I know the intent for Crystal was the history of the farm, was the agricultural, the farming, the horse trails, equestrian, arena, corrals, et cetera, which is all documented in that agreement. So that was really, when we gave the gift to the Park and Rec, our intent was for it to be equestrian, historical, education. It wasn't to have the mountain bikes share those trails with us. So.
Amen. That's what some of
Thank you
us
for
have heard,
coming.
and that's what they were talking even about at 2019. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just totally blown away at this,
Excuse me.
what changed.
So, all right, so I think we've heard concerns, yes?
Tom Hammer, one question. What insurance company covers the liability for all of this? Maybe Don knows.
Special District Association of Oregon has all.
I'm sorry, say again, please.
Sorry, I have a throat loss.
SDAO.
Special Districts Association of Oregon.
Thank you.
Okay, so Don or Casey, my limited recall of this was that we were in fact going to have trails for bikes and trails for horses, and they were going to be intermixed. So, please speak.
To give you an idea, my son is a horse trainer. He works in Chicago, Illinois. He runs Temple Farms, which is a huge place. They have trails all over the place. I had a chance to sit down with him, and I asked him about the dilemma with the bicycle. Do they allow bicycles and stuff? I had called the state, and as you well know, they allow bikes and that. I asked them how that went. They seemed to agree that they wanted to do that. My son said, Dad, an experienced rider may be able to handle the horse. An inexperienced rider will never handle that horse when a bike comes up on it. It's not possible. He said, you're asking me, so I'm telling you that what I would do is I would not have them at the same time. It's not going to work. He said at the same time, if a person chose to go on the bike with a horse, that was their right. That they could do that because they would assume the liability. An experienced rider may do that. I think we got a real problem in that we have to decide how to separate that area. I think there is enough area there by which to do it. The second thing is maybe we have to have certain days that bicycle use only. I don't know the total answer at this point. I think there's a safety issue. And as a staff and a board, I think safety should come first.
Yeah, but,
Lisa?
Mr. Chair, it was my understanding when we had a board meeting that the bikes and the horses would be on different sides of the mountain, that there would not be any time that they would be like crossing paths because of this safety issue. What changed? I want them to explain, because what changed? We're a public entity, so we have to be able to allow the public to use the property, but we need to do it safely. And I thought it was that we were gonna have the bikes on one side of the mountain
bike
and.
community called, I think they said one Thursday they wanted to use the horse area, and that they would post that and let people know. I think what has occurred is that they now feel that they can go over there and use it. I think we've got some real issues that we have to settle, and we've got to bring the biking community as well as the horse community together and figure this out. What I asked Russ was it possible to have a separate type trail just for bikes? For instance, you go, there's certain areas where there's enough room that horses and bikes can coexist, but there's areas where they can't. He was going to look at that, and we were gonna go out and look at that and make some presentations. Right now, I think the best thing to do in the short term is to say one side will be horses only and one side will be bikes only, and not allow it to cross, and post it as such.
Jason, do you have anything to add?
I do have some things to add. Currently, the Heritage Trails Committee is working on mapping all those trails. There's a lot of new trails up there, there's a lot of existing horse trails. Once we get those mapped, there's going to be some signs put up. And like Don said, there will be some that are, at this point, we don't know if we're gonna be shared or bike only or horse only, or what times, if we decide to go allow riders on trails at certain days. But it is a public park, and I realize that the horse people have been up there forever. And all this came about as a result of our infamous influenza, I should say, or a cold virus. Because outdoor activities increased tenfold, and bikers wanted places to bike, horses wanted places to go ride, and that farm has gone from 1 or 2 people a day to, I'm gonna guess there's probably, every time I go up there, there's 5 or 6 cars in the parking lot up there. So it's not like it's not being used. And some of the things that we saw initially were, and the reason we kind of separated the two sides was that there were horses over there when it was wet, and can't blame everyone for that. It's maybe 1 or 2 people. There were also bikes on places when it was wet. So, you know, pretty soon it's gonna be closed. Some of the horse trails will end up being closed, and it'll be shut down for bikes as well. So it'll give us some time to get some permanent signage up there and make some decisions, bring these two groups together, the equestrians and the bike groups, and come up with some viable answers.
I see no value in that at all.
Mayor, are we allowed to ask Casey a question about his committee? work?
I have a comment real quick as a board member. So, you know, I was hiking up there and I talked to Russ, who is working on the trails and development. And I asked him specifically, I said, on the west side, where most of the horse riders are, is it safe to have the bikers and the horses together? And he was mentioning he didn't feel it was safe. And that kind of also concurs with what Dawn says there. And so, and it was also my understanding when I left in operations of the park district that they'd be separate. The horses mainly stay on the west side, the bikers on the east side, and we keep them separated there for safety reasons. Now, with that said, and I've been a sub steward and mission and all that, you know, I bike and I hike. I don't mountain bike, it scares me. But anyway, there's ways that we can work together, maybe on both sides, or at least on the west side, to be able to develop trails over there that would be safe and away from the horses and away from the bikers. And I think it's something to look at. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think from a public entity, we need to look at all that. But I think also, from a safety standpoint, that should be our number one concern. So I don't disagree with Dawn. I think the separation right now, from my standpoint, and I'm only one board member, we should look at that hard and keep it that way until we can create a proper plan for everyone to make everyone safe and secure.
Okay,
Just one little quick question.
yes.
So I have the minutes from the last Heritage Trails Advisory Committee, Casey, and I just wondered, is there an equestrian representative on the committee?
You know, I don't know for sure.
There's multiple people on that committee that have ridden horses or own horses, yes.
Who presently is on the committee who's an equestrian?
Okay,
I have a list here.
This is
I mean,
not,
I've got
that's
horses.
not, you're wrong form here.
Are you on the committee too?
Okay, excuse
This
me,
is,
this
we're trying to have a
our
public
meeting, not
meeting,
yours.
so.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's just a question, but I was getting a lot of.
Okay, you had your hand up first.
I just have a comment is, you know, as a former board member, and Jim knows, as he was the operations when we gave the park over. You know, security has always been an issue for us up there. And, you know, we've asked for more patrols for various reasons, for kids at the park. We've even asked the sheriff department to do that. I live across from the park myself, but I think it's a good idea to separate, but I don't know how you're gonna do it. That's the problem, is you don't have anyone policing those folks. And I have come out several times and talked to the bike people about they're not to be on the upper side. Some have been nice and some flipped me off. So it's, unless you have some way of monitoring that or some idea, they are gonna come into the equestrian side because they're, you know, they're looking for new trails to ride. And there's 30 and 40 of them at a time.
Yeah, there's not one or two, there's 30
So-
or 40 children.
I just worry about how you're gonna
That's that
control
Thursday.
that. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but in logistics up there, Russ is not down there, he doesn't have the capabilities to monitor all of those things.
The children.
Okay, you had your hand up next.
I was just gonna, there's a saying in the horse world, and this is related to people driving their cars past a horse on the road, but it's just as apropos to bikers, and it goes, pass me at the speed you want my horse coming through, my 1,200-pound horse coming through your windshield. And that's what the biking community needs to understand. It's not just unsafe for the horse riders, it's unsafe for them too. Because a horse that has been panicked will do who knows what. So the danger is very, anyway, I just leaving that there.
Okay, a couple more, ma'am in the back,
I have
and then
a
you.
question. I know way back in 2019, there was a question about economics. So my question is, when you have an event, like the Thursday night event, is there a compensation that goes on? Does the CRPD get funds for these events that are run up there?
No.
And so if we had an equestrian event, we could plan that on any night of the week and go up there and, this is what's gonna happen because the reality. So we can go up and say, well, they're having Thursday night, we want 3 to dusk, the summer and spring months on both sides of and use both sides of the park.
And when it's not raining.
These are some of the reality of the things that are going on.
Okay, ma'am.
So I just want to go back to the whole thought. if it is as it is without any improvements to the trails to separate them, I still am very concerned about erosion that comes even in the dry times. I'm also concerned about, this is a very, it's like an island, a mountain is like an island in that you can't expand traffic nearly as easy as you can in valleys. And these are small neighborhoods. It used to be a lot of farmers, and now they're more residential neighborhoods. But the road there is barely a two-lane road. It's a two-lane small car.
Yes, we're familiar with the park and the road.
Okay, so those are also things that I'm concerned about, and I'm also curious if anyone has talked about doing permitting for events. Are the events that are going on, are the participants paying money to a club? Does anyone know that answer at the club events?
On the pickleball side, yeah, we pay CPRD. Yeah.
Pickleball, that's great.
No, it has nothing to do with trails, I'm just saying it's normal for us to pay for these facilities.
I'm on the CPRD Trails Committee, which has been in existence a little over a year, and given slow traction.
I need you to give us your name, please.
Alan Polstein.
Thank you.
Some of you came to our recent meeting. We recently established a priority to help the district put up trails up there. But I listened to this lady's comment about there being an agreement with CPRD that it would be equestrian only. I think I heard that that's the case.
Yes.
Then we need to respect that. If that's not the case, then this is a public recreation district and it's going to be multi-use. And that needs to be established. But absent that establishment, we recently committed to helping the district put up signs.
Okay, we're not gonna resolve this tonight. Do you horse folks, do you have a group that has like, you know, a board or
Oregon Equestrian Trails.
a local group?
We need to do that, we need to, like there's a bike group, I know that says Bob and Crystal Riley Bike Group, and that's what I was gonna say, the people that are here, if we could get together later, I think it'd be good for us to do the same kind of thing, so we can communicate.
Yes, I mean, I would like to ask, some of you, probably not all of you, and, Brian Bowman, who interestingly enough was going to be here tonight, he's one of the mountain bike folks, and he's very respectful, good guy, and he was gonna be here tonight to talk about some other things, and ended up not making it, because he ended up going on a camping trip, so I wish he had been here tonight. But I would love to get, a few of you in the room and see if we can find some compromise. It was my understanding that we were going to have both, because they would be completely separated up there. But anyway, we'll work on it, see what we can do.
I'd volunteer for that. I'm on the trails every day. So
Okay,
whatever
that's
you
sort of
want.
up to you folks to decide who your group is.
And if you need a meeting room or something, you can contact Kat probably, and she can set
Yes,
you
we
up
do.
with a place to meet if you want to meet.
Happy to give you a
in
place
district
to meet.
facility.
So,
To clarify, so I just wanna make sure I'm understanding this. You want local neighbors on this group, like, so the bikers are local neighbors too, is that what you're saying? You're saying you don't want a
They're a group.
statewide organization,
Yes,
or a
the-
regional organization, you
the-
want somebody that's just here?
Brian lives in Newburgh. I know they've had some, they do have events where the Newburgh Club participates with neighboring clubs. Sometimes they go to Westland, participate there. Sometimes they'll go to Tiger, participate there. Sometimes those folks will come out here to participate with Brian's group on their home track, so to speak.
So we have.
But there
we have-
is a Newburgh mountain bike group that exists that's you know, a little more formalized than you folks.
We're not gonna limit horse riders just
We'll
from.
do a Crystal
Yeah,
Riley
so-
question.
Run it to
I'm sorry, the group of 10, 20, 30, 40 children and one adult or two adults that I've run into 5 times over the last couple of months, they were from Lake Oswego. So, I don't know where the different regional areas or why it even matters. I'm just saying, the people that I've run into on my horseback out my front door, which is all on the west side, and it was a large, I mean, 30 or 40 kids on bikes is a lot, you can't miss them. There was a very large group. They were all from Lake Oswego, and they were told, or when I asked them, hey, you're on the west side, I think you're supposed to be on the east side, I don't want you to run into someone that doesn't have the same riding capabilities as I do, you know, these are kids, they don't know. They said, no, we asked the park, and the park said we can be over here. And I went, who did you ask at the park? And they didn't remember his name. And that was most recently, and I've cataloged every single incident on my phone. I don't have my phone right with me right now, but that was very recent.
It's gonna keep happening too.
Yes,
It's
it's
gonna keep happening.
I know Brian very well. He's one of the coaches on the Lake Oswego Composite, and I get mountain biking to middle school and high school. There's also a Tualatin Composite team that also practices up there. I don't know, not quite as often, but they do.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Okay. And ma'am in the back, then we're gonna have to move on with our agenda.
My name is Francie Haupt, and I am a dressage rider, per se, by discipline. But the challenge that non-horse people need to understand about the horse community is most of the time we are organized by the discipline or the breed of horse that we have. Unlike the bicycles, if you are in Newburgh, you join a local bike club. However, if you're interested in dressage, you join the dressage community. If you're interested in hunter jumper, you join the hunter jumper community, the trails, so on. So this is the challenge of getting a hold of horse people in a local club. It's because they're so diverse. And so you need a way of communicating and time to communicate with a wide variety of people. So that's one of the challenges that happens in the horse community. I'm a dressage rider. I rode on multiple used trails all the time when I lived in Josephine County. I ran into motorcyclists on my horse. Scared the bejeebers out of them half the time. My horse was used to that. Mountain biking is a little bit different because they're silent, or mostly silent. But the one challenge I did see on trails and parks down there is that the mountain bikers decide, oh, that looks like a good trail, and they start making their own trails through the hills. And that compounds the erosion situation and stuff like that. So it is a challenge, and it's a huge balancing act. And I understand that both groups are super, super passionate about their sport and their endeavor. So it has to be brought together so everybody is happy. But yeah, the whole fact of the mountain bikers going, if you let them use the west side one time, they're gonna assume that that's acceptable. So that just has to be very, very clear if you're gonna continue to do that. And frankly, if you're gonna have events up there, you better start charging people for it to help pay for your fixing of the trails. Because that's wasted revenue for the Parks Department to help maintenance those trails if you're gonna have events with hundreds of people that use it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Do we have clear next steps?
That's what I was gonna ask.
So what I'm gonna do is, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here before we go on with the rest of our agenda. If you didn't sign in, or flip the sheet over, make sure you leave us your email, and I will make sure that whatever we do next, that you all get an email back. That I
Thank you,
will
that's
pledge
very
to you.
appreciated, thank you.
All right? And we will take a break for 5 minutes. We'll reconvene before we're out. We're going to reconvene. We do have one board member who needs to leave at 7:30.
Well, I was sitting here.
So Dawn, maybe you can help advise me on which items we have that we actually need to vote on or something.
The only ones that contract,
The two, the under action items there?
yeah, the construction project pre-application for trails is on there, but it's only, we put it on there to let you know that we were doing it. If you want to make a motion to not do it, then you can do that. Otherwise, we're proceeding.
Okay.
Okay, so, I'm going to use the chair's prerogative here. We're gonna jump down and do action item A quickly, the contract for Greenworks additional services. If Dawn or Casey or Brian or somebody wants to give us a 30-second synopsis of what this is.
This is in addition to the contract that they have for work that
Excuse me, Hunter, will you shut that door, please? Thank you.
Let me lock it.
And do some 2x4s and nail it, yeah.
There's some nailing going on right there on the camera. Moving right along.
This is in addition to Greenworks contract for the design and engineering for the Newburgh-Dundee bypass trail phase 1. For all the things that the city says that they were gonna do and aren't following through on, including road engineering and, let's see, improvements to River Road. There's sidewalks involved and power poles that the city approved when ODA put them in, and now they're saying they have to be moved.
They wouldn't do that.
I'm just letting you know. There's additional survey and legal descriptions that the city was going to provide and never did. They provided us with, Will was kind enough to provide us with a check for $25,000 to cover some of it. They were supposed to design the ADA upgrades for Industrial Parkway and do a checklist of which components might have to be replaced on industrial. They haven't got that to us. And they did waive all the permit fees and things, so some of that comes off. But this is just additional contracts that they have to sign according to getting the rail crossing, the roadway improvements, and things that weren't in the original contract.
And this is all coming from the city?
Not all of it.
No.
But a lot of it.
A lot of it came from the city.
That wasn't in the original scope of work?
Right, because we were assuming the city was going to do some of that, and they are not.
Because that was my question, is there's this one sentence here in the packet that says, the city of Newburgh was to do this but backed out. So, and ergo, we got stuck with a bill for $150,000.
Hey, the city, I'm gonna mention something here too that should probably stay here. The city was supposed to do a rail crossing on River Street with that new housing development down there. And the developer should have been partially responsible for that on the end of River. And they held a diagnostic meeting in 2019. And one of the comments that came out of that meeting was that they were going to do it. It's not done yet, and it's left for us to do, because it ends up in our trail system.
I think we need to go to city council and start talking about some of these things, because this is not okay if they've made certain, agreements.
I don't think that the management at the city knows about what's going on as far as that goes.
Is there any agreements in writing
Agreements in writing.
from the city that they were gonna do these certain things?
We probably have some documents.
Because if they just verbally said, yeah, we're gonna do this, and there's nothing in writing, then I could see it getting a little waffly here.
Here's our difficulties, Jim. I agree with you. But at the same time, we cannot afford to wait. We got this grant. We're applying for the second phase. We're talking about $2 million. In the second phase, we're talking about $5 million. We can't afford to wait. We've got to move on this. And if it takes $150,000 to move on it, we got to do it.
It still keeps us under the original estimate for
Right.
the trail.
What's the estimate for that crossing now that we have street widening and ADA and all that other stuff?
It's
now?
about $600,000.
Just for that
Just
crossing?
for that, the rail crossing.
I still think, yes, I agree with you, and we should move forward, because that just doesn't make any
But
sense.
we
I
should-
do think we need
we
to go
should
back to the
bring
city and
this up
ask
to
for
the
them to
city.
give some compensation back to us
The
for
ci-
the agreement
They-
after the fact.
They have,
Yes.
they have another budget coming up. This is not a one-year project, it's a multiple year, so we have opportunities there. And we assume that, you know, one of the things that we put in the original grant request was that the city was gonna, their name was on it. So they were gonna help fund this trail. And for whatever reason, they decided they weren't going to fund it. And we went back to them and we asked them for money through ARPA. They denied that, or they just couldn't fund it. So we've tried multiple times, multiple ways to get money from the city, and
I think we need to come up with some of that paperwork, whether they're emails, whatever it is,
Okay.
and then I think we need to go make an argument after the fact. But for the purposes of what you need now, I understand, and I don't think it doesn't make sense to fight for $150,000 if you're gonna lose $7 million.
well, I think there's some documents in our meeting with the city back in March that things were said and things haven't been done.
Okay.
I think we need to develop some sort of a scale to where something happens and we just go over here and we look at the scale and it equates to how many nights the mayor sleeps on the couch.
We won't go there.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the additional services, the contract with DreamWorks.
I'll second that.
The move and seconded. Any further discussion by the board? Sensing none, certainly wanting none. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Jumping back to public participation. I know what Hunter's here for. Did you wish to speak during public participation?
I'm giving a Trails Committee report
your
if you
Trails
would like one, yes.
Your
My
Trails.
name's Lacey Darling.
Trails is coming up soon.
Okay.
And your
Well,
trails,
like when
and
things
your
are waiting.
trails too.
Yeah, I'm just listening.
Okay, and go Blazers, yes, okay. All right, so, not this time, did that. All right, you may feel free to leave whenever you want. Madam Rogers is excused from the rest of the meeting. Okay, so the pre-application thing, anything you want to tell us about that?
Cat.
I submitted it, and between the time that we put together the packet and put the pre-application in there for your reference, yesterday we got the communication from ODOT that we are approved to apply. So we
Yay.
will be moving forward with that. The application, we've got a little time. It's due in January. So.
It's a federal grant.
Yep.
Question, do we need help outside of our staff in writing this grant, this federal grant?
No, we have help outside of our staff. We collaborate with Paula Grimace, whom we already pay. And
Okay.
we've been successful with phase one, and we've been successful with our pre-application, so I see only strength there.
Okay.
Just it's a little off the subject, but we just got word that we will, as you know, the Sanders Estate deal, we did make the cut, but they're coming through the back door, through the federal, and we're applying, and they'll give us the $1 million that we asked for.
Is that land and conservation?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's National Park Service.
Yes.
Right.
So
So
So we
actually,
are gonna get.
Get some from the
we're actually
state.
gonna invite, if any of the board would like to come with us for a
We
site
can come back to this
visit
in a
on
moment
that.
if we need to. We're going to quickly jump to reports and comments from board members, and Lisa's going to go first before she is excused.
So I just want to, just want to make sure with the board, I am on the Cultural Center board, and they want me to be the president next year, starting in January. I am a required member of that board as a part of the CPRD, CCC connection. I just want to make sure there's no concerns with this board, with me serving as president of that board. I would think they would have more concerns than you all will, but I just wanted to make sure that I was very clear with both boards. And I understand I'm an appointed person.
Well, you've been involved with that board since the get-go, even when we were building it originally, and helped us get some grants and stuff, so I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think we represent the district well.
Lisa already asked me, and I told her I had no concerns.
I have no concerns.
I have no concerns.
Thank you. Okay, now I'll go. I'll
Bye.
leave your sign up there.
Right.
Hopefully,
Thank you.
If it's not there, somebody else took it. so-
Yeah, no, I'll call you if somebody else takes it.
And I'll get it. Thank you all.
Okay. Do we need to go back? Was there anything else about what we were just talking about? Yes, Lisa wanted to bring that up, so I wanted to get to that. So we're getting more free money, hopefully.
Hopefully still being the operative word, so I wanted to invite the board, if any of you would like to join us for the site tour with the National Park Service. That will be on October 10th, which is a Monday, at 9 a.m. and approximately 90 minutes.
Yeah, this side.
And this is at Saunders?
Yep.
Standard, 359.
Can you send us an email reminder,
I can, yeah.
please? Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to reports and comments from board members. Bart?
Yeah. I want to thank Julie, and I don't remember the staff person that she worked with, but my wife's third grade teacher at Crater Elementary, and I'm a homeless student that her sisters had to come pick her up. They'd have to leave Chehalis Valley Middle School early, and it was creating a real problem for the family, and so CPRD staff worked with the principal at Crater Elementary, and they made accommodations for care for that student, so I appreciate that, thank you.
Anything else?
And that's, I'll leave it at that for this
All right.
time.
Gail? James?
Yeah, so at the Trails Committee meeting, I was approached by some folks that live in Dundee, and I know that Casey was there too. I just want to bring it up that they were concerned about the bathrooms up there in Dundee and disrepair. I haven't gone and looked at them lately, but
They're
I
the
think
same.
that, yeah, anyway, and they brought up dog bags, and I think I educated them on that. But then also the Third Street parking, they were talking about paving it. I don't know if we need to pave that, but I think that we could probably do some things to improve it without spending a lot of money. The other thing that I saw, and I will be going to their community meetings, because I'm on that, I'm supposed to be representing Dundee, so I'll be going and listening to what they have to say and bringing it back to the board. The other thing that I saw when I went through the Cultural Center cost analysis on the next phase, phase 3, and Don, you can remember part of this, is that they talked about $800,000 on the roofing.
Yep.
I don't think that, I think we need to look at that a little closer, because I know that we replaced the composition shingles probably 15 years ago.
I got a
and-
bid for $125,000 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that, and when we put the ballroom on there, and when we put the vestibule in the back on there, those are all new roofs. So when I looked at that number, I was surprised at what SEA is talking about.
Because they were gonna do the whole roof.
Yeah, I get, they always want to do the whole
Yeah, I
roof.
know.
But I don't think they'll need to. I think we can save some money there, so. And there's some other things, like the geotech work. Maybe you and I could talk about that a little bit.
What, is there any geotech?
There was some geotech work done before by
I
Carlson
know,
also.
I gave them all that information.
Okay, so if it has to do with I don't wanna get into it here because, you know, but you and I probably need to talk, because I do have a little bit of history, and Don does too, on what we've done over those years to get it to where it is now. So, I just don't wanna reinvent the wheel
There were
here.
some seismic studies done
Okay.
and things like that.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, I don't have anything for this meeting. Under old business, we're gonna skip A, we're gonna do B and C first, so these folks can go, and then we'll jump back up to A. So we're gonna do pickleball next. Hunter?
Okay, and I have a handout. I commented to Kat earlier about the 3-inch packet. Things tend to get lost in there. First of all, I want to thank Brian and his crew, Howard Whitman and so forth, for the fine job they did on the pickleball courts and painting them. They basically convoluted the lines. The tennis people are happy because they're not confused and so forth. The girls in the high school, I guess, were complaining. But in any case, it's a fine job. These guys were out there for 8 days on their hands and their knees, painting new lines, fixing cracks in the courts, and basically giving that joint court facility a new life for 7 more years without rebuilding it. And, pass them out here at the end. Okay. One of my, obviously in here. Okay, one of my biggest frustrations, and you've seen me exercise this before here, is on funding of these operations. And in going back and doing a lot of research on the books, we brought this up last meeting. There's a big inconsistency between organizations within CPRD as how they do reporting. In August, we started asking for an set of audited financials so we could just see what it was. And we could never get our hands on one. We sent them samples of what it looked like. Couldn't get it, so I went straight to the Secretary of State, and I have a copy of your audited financials, which I can, by your meeting notes, you've never been given. You've been given drafts that were on 1/27/2022. Coincidentally, that's the date that the audited report was manufactured, 1/27/22. In reviewing this, looking at what the auditors recommended, it's pretty simple. They say, in the draft one, they said expenditures were within authorized limitations. Except in this one, they say, except on page 10. Going back to page 10, there is a minor one for general fund transfers out for $660,000, and the system development fund $945,000. Now, given, your comment, do we have this? I think is what you said before. And we're going back and looking at every one of the packets and all the board agendas. You don't. This was never given to the board. This is your audited financials filed with the Secretary of State.
But we have it available to the board if they so wanted. Don has those.
I asked him for them and couldn't get them.
You asked who?
That's
No.
not true.
No, we did. We asked you, and we even sent notes over saying this is what they look like.
Now, wait a minute. I would have given you a copy if you had asked me.
We
don't intercede with something that's not true, because the person with you asked for a copy and we gave it to him.
And they're marked draft. They're all marked draft.
I don't know about the markings of the draft, but they're in the office. Not only that, the board received a copy in their packet
What,
of
I
all
checked it,
the,
and I couldn't find it in any money.
well,
And I couldn't figure out why we couldn't get a copy. We sent over a sample of what it would look like.
you're implying that we're hiding something, and it's totally the opposite.
The implication is when we ask for a public document, we should.
You should get it.
We should get it. And we
you-
did. We asked repeatedly and didn't get it.
That's not true.
You got something, what did you get?
We got copies of the draft that was issued, the same thing the board saw on 1/27/22. That's what we got. And one of the things that was said about it is it said the information we're looking at isn't final. Well, it couldn't have been if we had this, it would have been final. We never understood that. That's not rocket science for us. And so anyway, You guys can get your own copies of this from the Secretary of State or Don. The other thing we looked at, and it's frustrating, is that when you guys go out for grants, I don't see anything there for continuous operations, which means that's gonna come up against your budgets in future years. You know, poor Brian's gonna be sitting there going, oh geez, I gotta take care of all this stuff, and he's gotta have a budget for it. I don't see budgets in any of your budgets. I see grants, I see capital budgets, and then after that it disappears. And it doesn't disappear, we all know that. It takes money to run all these things.
No, it's understood by the board that if we build something, we're gonna have to maintain it.
But shouldn't that be in your budgets?
I wouldn't say that when I was doing the budgets for all those years, I didn't earmark that this is gonna be for Friends Park. You know, it was basically a wide angle situation where I said, okay, we got this much mowing, we got this many paths, we got this many playgrounds, and we got the budget to meet those costs.
Okay, but it's not shown in your budgets.
What's not shown? There's an
The
increase.
actual amounts, okay, if you get a project like the trails, for example, it's gonna cost so much for you to maintain it. Okay, you're gonna have incremental charges as the trail's built out, no ifs, ands, or buts. The guys that are riding horses and bikes on the trails up here clearly pointed out there's gonna be a maintenance requirement. That's gonna be an overhead that if you're gonna maintain them, it's gonna cost you money. That should be in your budgets. Any business does this, they go out and build an operation, they assume it has to be maintained and has a sustainable budget. And it's just what you expect. And that's what was really frustrating for us, is when we did the grants, we had to put operating budgets in those as part of the funding, like how many FTEs is it gonna take, how much electricity, that kind of junk, okay? That is what we think everybody should do. So that when you come down to here and say, look, we want this facility, you guys can go, okay, here's what we got for revenue. Here's our SDCs, here's our taxes, here's our committed fees that are gonna suck that out. Here's what's left. Doing grants where you're doing a matching grant without a budget, where's the money coming from? Can't come out of thin
I'll let
air.
the staff go from here, I'm not gonna go back.
I'm just
to all
saying is
this.
that it's gotta come from somewhere, and it should be in your budget. You should have, say, okay, we're gonna match grants up to this amount per year, period. Okay? If you don't get it, for example, let's say Sanders Park had turned sideways, and you don't get the federal grant. You're in the bag out there politically to build that park. They wanna know that you're taking park funds, not what you're getting from grants or asking Mrs. Sanders for, and completing that park. You've made the commitment to do the park. So you better have the commitment to apply those operating funds after the fact as well as during the actual capital project. And I think depending on deals and so forth, it's not the way to run a business. And I think, you know, if I come down here and ask for pickleball stuff, it should fall under the same criteria. No difference. Everybody who does a submission gets to know, okay, here's our finances, this is what we can afford, this is what we got coming in for cash. This is our projected cash flow of all these projects being implemented, this is what's left. Makes it pretty clear. No ifs, ands, or buts. So when you do a grant, the first thing you do underneath that grant is come back to you guys and say, okay, here's a 5-year operating budget to do the trails grant. How much is it gonna cost to maintain all this stuff? Bridges? You guys are experts in doing that, right? No, you're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be running a Parks and Rec district. Another thing I've done in support of this thought is, Don and I have had conversations over the campground. I know you've moved it up on the hill now and so on and so forth. That's good, because it was down in that floodplain, it wasn't gonna work. So I said, you guys have not been in campground business ever, as far as I know. I called up a planner at Oregon Parks and Rec, said, hey, have you got any handbooks or anything else that the municipalities can use to do planning? And they said, no. I said, is the information available? And they said, yeah, if you want to come down here and collect it. I said, I'm interested from the design side all the way to the operations side. So if you have a 20-space campground that's ADA approved, and 10 motorhome spaces or whatever else, and you've got so many loops and this, that, and the other, they can tell you what it costs to run it. You guys need that if you're gonna get in the campground business. Wherever you put it. This is not against campgrounds, it's against fiscal responsibility. It's for fiscal responsibility. And you guys need to be fiscally responsible. Right now, you're not. You just got a project and you have no idea what's gonna cost you. And that's not me asking for funds, that's for me asking for you guys to use your funds wisely. So when I come in and ask for a project, we'll all got the same level playing field. There's no magic, political donations for a conservative school position that you gotta fund and that kind of junk. Okay, Rainey wasn't on the books, never was on the books. It was never a priority. Like the pickleball thing, if we got the grants, it wasn't a priority either. So what are your priorities? If we can pay for it completely, you still gotta pay for the operations. That's the hook. And trails isn't gonna be cheap, that's gonna have to be cleaned up. Bridge maintenance, that's not gonna be cheap. In any case, that's what I've got to say, and I'm sorry we got a disagreement over the books, but, we tried.
Well, I
We
don't
wanted to
know.
work out the same set of numbers everybody was working off.
I don't know what happened, but the gentleman you brought in got a copy. I gave him a copy.
I know, I saw it. It says draft right on it. That's the only thing we could get.
I
Printed
don't-
right across the tops of these pages, draft, 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 draft.
Anyone have any questions for Hunter?
Anyway.
No, what I'd suggest it might be more helpful to, if you have a disagreement with what you received, to bring it back to Dawn instead of just being confrontational at a board meeting. It's,
I'm sorry about being confrontational, but at some point when you don't get something and you've asked as nicely as you could, you've sat down with people, what do you do?
ask again.
Well, okay. Point taken.
All right, thank you for your input. Trails Advisory Committee report.
So I'm Lacey Darling, I'm on the Chehalem Heritage Trails Committee. I'm gonna make this really short and sweet. So Dundee Village Park was brought up at our meeting. We talked about the restroom restoration issue. The restrooms are in need of repair, and we agree. That's something as a committee that we agreed with, that we wanted to bring that to the board because we think it's bad enough to where it needs attention. As for the paving of the gravel lot, I guess there's been cars that are going out there and doing donuts and things like that and making it a little bit worse. So that's why the recommendation from us was paving. That could help keep it cleaner out there and not have as much erosion and things like that from just people going out there and taking cars and partying. So the other thing that we had that we wanted to let you guys know was that our meeting time was changed to 6:30, just because. But we also are looking for guidance from the board on a volunteer subcommittee. So what we want to focus on is actually putting together a group of volunteers, like extensively through our community. And we want to know, essentially from the board, where we stand there. Are we able to go ahead and start on that?
No, are you talking about, excuse me, are you talking about
Trails.
wanting to work on trails?
Yeah, to work on
To
trails
volunteer.
specifically, just to get a group of volunteers started, to get people going out and working on trails and
Those are not.
organize a little better, I guess, is what we're saying. We'd like to organize this in a way that is,
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
Would that be through Brian or Casey?
Okay,
So maybe if you touch base with them, volunteers are super important to the district.
yeah.
So anytime that we can get help,
That's what we'd like to do. We would really like to focus on putting, we want a whole subcommittee within our Chehalem Heritage Trails Committee that just focus on volunteerism and getting people together and doing something on a monthly basis where we pick a trail and we go out and clean up. And that's why they brought me in. This is why I applied. I'm from Eastern Washington. I was on Friends of Badger Mountain, so Badger Mountain Trails, Candy Mountain, I helped build Candy Mountain Trails. So the whole purpose of me joining this was so that I could help with the volunteerism aspect. And it's something that we've kind of let slide for a while because we've had Bob and Crystal Riley come up so much. But we're really wanting to focus on this subcommittee and get volunteerism built up. And so that by next spring, we can have lots of people ready to go and ready to go out and help and clean things up.
And it's any of our trails, not just.
Yeah, any of them, yeah,
we
all of them.
Focus on that trail.
Well, no, the focus on that trail is just because of,
Right. No, that's,
Yeah.
we welcome that, that's great, please.
Okay.
My
We
car
spend a
tells
lot
me
of
to-
labor on trails.
I know, yeah, I've been on a few of them recently, and there's definitely some work that needs to happen, so I'd love to get that started.
We welcome that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm pretty sure the board has consensus, but working through Brian is the appropriate way to go. And
Okay.
we welcome, that's very important to the operations of the district, the volunteer help.
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you for coming. Thank you
Yes.
for your patience that took this long to
Absolutely.
get to you.
That's okay.
I have a quick question for Hunter, a pickleball question.
Sure.
So Jim Marvel is now my my substitute mail person.
Right.
And so I see him every now and again. So we were talking the other day. I'm hoping to get out and play some tennis with him because I got a cortisone shot in my elbow yesterday, so hopefully I'll be able to do stuff again. He mentioned he had played out at the courts. He went out to play at the courts in Dundee at Bell Park. So there were some minor cracks here and there and stuff, but he said it wasn't too bad. Love to see those fixed. He said they really need to be power washed. He said that was the biggest thing. They hadn't been cleaned in a long time. Stuff. My question to you, Hunter, is if we put pickleball lines on those two courts, would people use those, do you think?
My guess is they'd have to know it. I mean, the nice thing about having 12 courts, that's 3 every court. We can play 6 courts and then the 2 are empty. Okay. One of the things that
Yeah, there's only 2 courts there, Bell Park.
Okay, so
There's
we
just
could
two.
put 6 pickleball courts on that, not that we need 6, but you could paint them on there. The other thing that Jacob needs for tennis players is new nets. We've got them, we use them as backstops, and we're using the ones that are in the worst shape for the backstops. But at least 3 of those nets have to be replaced, and the cranks that allow you to bring them up have to be replaced for the tennis players. We only use them for backstops, so if they're rotting, it doesn't make it worse.
Okay, all right, just curious. All right, thank you.
One point I will make is Brian will hire a contractor, right, Brian?
To paint,
Yeah,
in Dundee, we discussed that in-house.
I think it was one of the conclusions you came after you guys spent.
Yeah.
Either that or it's my new fallback. plan
Howard's
is,
gonna,
be a
if Howard
pickleball
has to
paint.
do it again, he's probably gonna say some bad words.
Anyway.
Okay. We are now going to jump back up to A, which is updates on projects. That would be you, Casey, I assume.
Yeah. Projects. The pool, still working on it, waiting for balancing. They balanced it wrong the first time. And, so the engineer brought back another. It was kind of weird when I looked at the balancing report from Madover, and it shows one pump pumps more water than all 3 pumps together, so there's something wrong there. We haven't had too many alarms, so everything seems to be working okay. No?
No, we've had a lot of alarms on those units up on the roof.
Also, there's a valve that controls your HVACs or off balance, and you're supposed to keep the pool at a certain temperature in the air, at a certain temperature, and it's going back and forth. I got fixed. I saw that in your note. I do read the board packet.
Yeah. That's a control valve on the, yeah.
And is that repaired?
Yeah, so we've repaired that, I think, 3 or 4 times now. They use plastic gearing in that particular actuator. So we're waiting to hear back from Robert Lloyd Sheet Metal whether or not we can switch to something that's a little bit more beefier for that valve. But other than
Because
that,
it stays in one position for so long, like during a season, like summertime, it'll stay, and then as soon as it starts cooling down, it moves. And it's plastic gearing in that opens the valve, and it just shears the gearing off.
Usually Robert Lloyd, they're being pretty responsive, aren't they?
They are, they're,
Yeah.
yeah, they're great.
And so,
So
I just look at
that's-
it, we're coming into winter.
And
that
it decides
could be
to
an issue.
move, yeah. So that does that.
So what was the media release? I didn't understand that.
Are we talking in the,
The perlite.
couple?
Comp.
Oh, the
Yeah.
perlite, okay.
Perlite.
That's
So
filter
there,
media?
we have a surge tank, which is where water goes when people get into the pool. There's a valve in there that is damaged from factory. What is it called? Anderson Pool Works is going to come out this December and repair that valve. But while that valve is damaged, air is getting in the system, which gets in the strainer basket. When the system does a bump cycle, which is where it reorganizes the media, the filter material,
If the tank's too low,
and if the tank's too low, it sucks in air and it disperses that throughout the pool.
No way.
And you get not so good looking water.
Okay.
Any other questions on bump cycles or valve gearings?
Is the engineering firm that's working on those Airmac units, is it the same engineer that
Interface.
designed it?
interface,
Yeah, is it the same engineer working on it?
yeah.
Okay.
And he more or less admitted it was his mistake to begin with. So he's trying to repair it.
Should we maybe try a different engineer? Just saying. So,
They're paying for all this, so I don't care
Alright.
who does it.
Well, no, we pay for it in our energy costs and in $1 million worth of equipment on top of the roof,
Well,
in my, in my opinion, but
yep.
at least they're
I
paying
think,
something.
I think,
Okay, thank you.
Triplet Wellman warned you. Backer, I think Steve had many times warned you.
I don't know about many times, but we talked about it.
We would be in court right now if it wasn't for the idea that they had to make it good.
Right.
We knew that it was going to be a major problem. And when we visited everywhere, they had the same problems. They just lived with it, and we didn't want to live with it. So we're holding them to it, and they have to do it. So,
I'm still holding the final payment.
right.
I was gonna ask about that. Was it like 5%?
How much interest do we gain on that?
$21,000 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Then there's, their estimate on this cost was 84,000, and I know it's already up from that because they missed a few things, so they're probably in it to about 95 right now that we're not paying for. So anyway, that's where that's at.
So let's calculate the interest we made on the final payment, and I'll designate that into the new clubhouse fund.
There you go. What else is there? The Newburgh Dunby bypass trail, that's moving along slowly. We're kind of in an impasse, I guess. There's things that we're waiting for. I think we just finished this DSL report, and there's a couple minor adjustments. I talked to Mr. The guy at the airport's name, Jerry Dale. They're thinking about extending their runway another 300 feet. So he was.
He's gonna come right through here.
No, not this way.
Okay.
Towards the trail more. So he was concerned that any lighting or surface of the bridge or anything not be in the way of him doing that. And I think Don's told me before that this project's been in the works for a long time. But he was concerned, and so I took him documents today to show him elevation of the bridge and distance away from, it's 30 feet from bypass. And there's a 60-foot right-of-way that ODOT owns through there. So that kind of relieved him. I showed him where all the properties were alongside there, and that we're not intruding on his plans, I guess, more or less. So he's given us approval to put the trail in there. I mean, that's a supporter of the trail, so that's good. Campground, I gotta do some, I talked to Jerry Dale today, he actually said one of his relatives owned the property at the time. The wells were destroyed when ODOT put the bridge in for the 219 highway. So there's a good chance that we can find a good well where we propose to do it, and it's at the corner of the hairpin going down to the lower level. So I think we might need to drill a test well to make sure. Not, I'm gonna talk to the well driller, Schneider, and see what kind of test well he would recommend putting in there. The city found water in the gravel outside the Willamette. I think, Jim, you're aware of that project?
I remember when the city was looking to put wells down there and decided not to.
Yeah, because they found levels of.
Mhm.
Well, this would be up from that.
Yeah, this is up higher because you're down
Further
further
away from the Willamette, and maybe there's it's worth drilling a test well.
I have a question for you on that property. I drove out there and just to take a look at it, and noticed from the highway the grass and stuff looked pretty tall. And I drove down there and I noticed that you did some work around the edges. But my concern is that invasives get in there, Himalayan blackberry and so on, it's gonna get out of control. So I was hoping, because in the past years.
We normally mow it down twice a year.
Yeah, because did it get mowed down this year?
Don't know.
Just the perimeter.
I don't think it has.
The perimeter, you noticed.
It's just the perimeter. And the blackberries are starting to come onto the road, so we might want to do some fall work up there with spraying. But I worry that if we don't stay on top of that, the blackberries aren't your friend, and they'll just take off, and then we got more problems. So if we could get down there and mow it before it gets too muddy, if you have time, that'd be great.
I want to remind the board that when we decided to build a campground, we went to state parks. We got all their information. Pete Sedaris was on the board at the time. He then decided, we looked at what it would cost to run that, what revenue we would bring in, and we gave all that information to the board. And the idea that we don't look at operations is totally false. Because we look before it. And we gave all those figures so that we would know.
Does Hunter have access to that information?
No.
He hasn't asked for it. But it's easy to get. You can go back into the files and find it all.
He made it sound like he combed through everything.
Well, he hasn't talked to me, and I don't think he's talked to you, has he?
Oh, yeah, I've given Hunter a number of things that he's asked for. In fact, he was in 2 days ago and had no complaints, only good things to say.
Did you give him a copy of the audit?
He said he went down to the state.
Yeah, no, we gave him whatever we gave him before the last board meeting about that.
Anyway.
So what else?
Crabtree?
Yeah, Crabtree, I talked to Paige, and just need to get her to sign it. I'm a little late to get that project done this year, so we've been keeping the culvert clean, and we'll get it done next year.
Has the county said that they are not going to do anything?
Yep, right at the start.
Are we gonna push back on that? Because in theory, they own the property, if their easement into there,
Well, we're gonna talk to them when we
it's
get
just
started,
disappointing
because
that they
they're-
can't.
They're responsible for some of this cost.
Well, they also have some machinery that could help us out with some of that, so, you know, I understand that sometimes everybody's busy, but I just think that they have a responsibility. And
Well, I
I just
don't-
wanted to go on record to say that, I think that the county has a responsibility to look at that.
When we first saw that culvert was caving in.
Yeah, I know, you told me that, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I remember, but I still just wanna go on record that I think the county has a responsibility there.
Well, I have some relationship with Phil Lago now, and I think I could probably talk him into that, some of that. But the engineering has to be done because of the fish passage.
I understand that, what do you have to do for it?
And we also have to design for access for Knutson's Vineyard, because when they do that culvert, they're gonna close that road down. So they're gonna kind of make a lane wider so they can keep it open and then do the other part.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Anything else, Brian? Golf course, we got all aerated. Well, not all, but greens, tees.
Leisure pools.
Leisure
drained.
pools been drained, clean, comfortable.
Ball fields.
clean. Ball fields.
Mounds and stuff.
I'm gonna stop talking pretty quick. But one more thing I have to say about the leisure pool and the fire truck.
Yeah.
We really need to look at that
We need to
carefully.
replace that.
Well, either replace it or talk to the people that gave us $50,000 and work on something else.
Well,
But bring me into that when you do that, so I can help with the contact with the volunteers, please.
Yeah,
Because I know that fire truck is
that
is
was
not gonna put out any
$12,000.
more fires.
No, it's actually, we know it needs to be replaced. There's money in the budget to do that, so.
Well, let's talk about it before you put this
Do you
in.
really want to replace that?
My 3-year-old grandson loves the fire truck.
I know.
We need to cut it up in pieces because we can't get it out of there, and then we need to put something new in its place.
I think Tara and Wendy have some ideas on what they want to put in there. There was also a gift from the volunteers, the fire department,
Yeah.
an
So you
extra
need-
10,000.
You need to get everyone that was involved with it.
I just know the people to talk to, so please get a hold of me and I'll try to make
I
it.
agree with Jim. We need to be very careful about that. The second thing is, we need to be careful about, for instance, people will call me about play equipment. And as Jim knows, when we put in play equipment, the neighborhood chooses it. They decide on the colors. We don't go in and do all that. And this guy was telling me about how stupid we were and about how blind we were. And I said, you're talking about your neighbors. They made the decision. How long have you lived here? And he says, well, I've only been here for 2 or 3 years. I said, well, about 10 years ago, the neighbors decided what they wanted, what color they wanted, and we followed that. And I said,
They
it
all
wasn't
found out they
something,
get 100,000 more than their house was listed for, and then
Yeah.
it was all sold last, so.
you're right. But
Which playground was that?
well, that was Jakewood Playground. And as you know that story, but the same thing with the fire truck. It was donated and people don't like it. Some people don't like it, other people love it. And you can't satisfy everyone. It's just
I think there's some
not
things that we
possible.
can work out so we don't have to go through putting out another fire.
Yeah,
Well, that
you're
was a
correct.
very undurable structure for a pool.
Well, they use that material they use in a lot of the big water parks.
That's correct.
But with that said, the big water parks replace things all the time. And
Well,
we're not into
they
replacing
do,
things all
and
the
they're
time.
probably not open 365 days a year, year after year.
Well, anyway,
Nancy Schmidt would be a great one to be on.
I know
that.
Nancy very well, and that, I know the people who were involved, we just need to
Yeah.
handle it correctly.
Yeah.
That 30-year-old grandson loves a fire truck, I'm telling you.
Except for
All
Doug's
right.
grandson.
I think that's it.
Okay, check. Golf course committee report. We met Tuesday, the full committee for the first time. A lot of enthusiasm. We didn't,
They get you a clubhouse done?
so, the most popular topic, again, this was the very first meeting, so we haven't gotten into detail or specifics, but the most popular topic was, of the people on the committee, certainly seems to be the clubhouse. And so we will talk more and meet more soon. We'll be meeting once a month, and we very preliminarily kicked around some ideas about what could we do to kickstart getting clubhouse. But again, that was very preliminary discussion, so we'll see how that works out. We're going to meet an hour early next month because we want to take a tour of the third night.
Oh, okay.
Folks
We need
want
a bus?
to get out and walk around. We'll see what the weather's done between now and then, whether we can.
Some boots that don't get stuck in quicksand
Whether
or
we
something.
can use, feet and boots, or if it's still dry enough to use golf carts, or if we, need tanks or whatever.
I think I'd take gators.
Gators, yeah.
So, anyway.
How many people are on the committee?
There's 7 on the committee, I make 8. We actually had a few, strangers show up, so there was about 10 people there. And a member of the public stole a piece of pizza.
There's probably enough vehicles. We can-
2 pieces? I didn't see the second one.
Good.
Oh, okay. So anyway, it was a good first meeting, so everybody go along. Friends Park easement, updates, right-of-ways, bump cycles.
Our
Gary.
attorney said that there was nothing in the deed that would stop us from making that deal, but unfortunately, we did get a government grant to develop that. And as I explained to the gentleman who called, as well as the real estate agent, that we're looking at probably 6 to 8 months going through the state. And the real estate agent said, no, that's a minimum. It'll probably take a year. And I said, well, you're familiar with this? And she said, yes, it will take some time. But I believe the state will approve that because it makes sense. When you take a lot, a lot for a house, and you substitute and you get 4 acres or something in return, that's added to the park, the state would probably go ahead and approve that. So we'll be continuously working on that.
Any questions about that? At your own risk. All right. Paddle launch.
I put in the board packet, I think, the information from John about what we can do, and we'll be working on that this winter. And I hope, my hope is we're able to get that paddle launch open.
So is that the easement that John was talking about, the same, used to be Southeast 8, now it's Dundee Landing Road?
Yeah,
The same road that Edwards uses for access down there?
that's correct.
And so if we have, actually, is it the access will be with the, or the easement will be with the city of Dundee, is that right?
That's correct.
And
And
then-
probably,
Will that mean that the gate would need to remain open?
well, that's correct. And probably what I would recommend, and we'll get there, is maybe talk with the Edwards and put a fence up all the way their property and put the gates in for
Yeah.
them, so that they're protected and they can lock their property off.
I think that's a good idea.
And again, we're not that far along, but that's what my thought was, and you've been there. That seems to be the way to go.
I did, back when we had the paddle launch, put in some telephone pole posts and chain to go across the road
Yeah,
so we could block the access onto that timbered area.
correct.
Wasn't that Wasn't that part of it?
Yeah, I was, that stopped part of it, but there was one or two people from Dundee that were going and taking the four-wheelers in the orchard. So it was kind of a straw that,
We may want to think about when we're in operation, closing that at night, having a gate to close at night, because that's one of the problems that we're gonna have, is we're gonna have people there after hours, and we're gonna have issues. We had issues last time, we put cameras up and so on and so forth, and vandalism, and so, just something to consider down the line.
We could probably work with the police department and convince them to go out and lock it.
Yeah, or the people that, you know, when we're doing the paddle launch, shoot, we went till dark.
Right.
And the last person just locked the gate, and said, we're gonna lock the gate at this time, yeah.
But in the winter,
In the winter, that's, yeah, it may not be open.
right. That's a good point.
I don't know, I'm hoping that it can be not just the paddle launch, but the community, whole community use that park for, there's as many people walking down there for exercise with their dogs.
You're right.
And there's a lot of people, more people probably using the paddle launch with their personal watercraft than there were rentals, and we were going 2 days, you know, just a
I'm just
weekend.
talking about after dark, they don't probably need to be done.
Yeah, I'm not probably opposed to that, but certainly we should have some discussion.
Absolutely. Be great to get that back.
Okay. Moving along, superintendent's report.
We got a request for George Sampson recognition. Are you familiar with that, Jim?
I saw something going around, but I'm not sure exactly what.
There was a group of people that wanted to put up a plaque. As you know, he coached.
Mm-hmm.
With the board's permission, we'll work with them and put a plaque up. It would be in the competitive pool, because that's where he coached. And it would be a plaque, and if the board has no objection, we're going to just go ahead and do that. As you know, his wife works for us and runs the pool.
We could just rename the competitive pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Don, we've done that in the past. We had a coach that passed away from cancer way back in the day.
Yeah.
And we had a plaque up for him, so it's not like we haven't done that before.
If the board doesn't have any objection,
just do
and there's consensus, I'm gonna do it. So I just wanted you aware of it. The other thing is, there is a hearing at the county on the urbanization of the land that's right next to the park up there. They're trying to bring that into the city.
Which park?
The park up there.
Shad Park.
Thank you.
Shad Park. With the board's approval, I will go and represent the district if you have no objection for that land coming in.
So is my understanding correct, it's now urban growth boundary, and they want to bring it into city limits, is that, do I understand that right?
They're wanting to bring it into the urban growth boundary.
So it's in the urban
Right.
reserve area right
That's-
now?
Well, that's debatable. It was in the urban reserve area, and they removed it to the urban growth boundary. Then they removed that. I don't know, it's so messed up.
It's in the packet too.
But my point is, if the board doesn't object, I'm going to represent that we have no problem with it, would support that effort.
Yep.
Did they talk about working with us with some of that property and maybe expanding Shad Park?
The developer and the owner of the property said that they would give us additional property and that they would give us land next to Shad Park. And as you know, there's a fishing pond there.
Yep.
And they would also put trails in there. And, but again, I believe him. I have nothing in writing. As you know, he's been to the board and told you the same thing.
Yep.
And I trust him, and we're going to move ahead with it.
Yeah, that lower part that we're talking about here is not very developable, or not
Yeah.
used, can't use it for, can't really use it for anything, except it's very wet.
Blackberry pie.
It's very wet, yeah. But it's a good piece.
Yep. So, again, that's where it's at. And
Yeah.
I'll probably attend that meeting and represent the district if I don't hear of any objections.
Okay.
I have none.
Do we have to decide that right? I mean, the meeting's like October, the meeting's coming up, right?
Right.
I don't have an objection.
I don't have an objection.
I personally would like to ask people more questions about it, but I guess I don't have that option.
Well, if you feel, or I hear from any board member that objects, I'll not do it. So if you find something out, you object, call me, and I won't do it.
Well, with that said, Don, I think that that would be an asset for the Park District to have next to us, so I'm not sure.
Well,
I'd like to be represented there just to be represented. You don't have to say anything, but just to be represented. But,
do I, did 3 of you agree to that?
Okay, it's gonna
Well,
happen. It's
I
gonna
want to
happen.
respect
There's-
Gail's concerns here, but at the same time, I hate to miss the opportunity to have it. Once something comes into the advances in that whole urban growth boundary, urban reserve, the city
All right.
limits it.
Is that okay with you, Gail?
So you're, I don't have an argument together at this point, so.
Okay.
We have to, yeah.
So I would
If
say,
you find something
Yeah.
out, call me and I'll call all the board members and we'll go through it again before I do it.
okay,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
yes.
fine. Okay.
Right now, I'm going with it unless something, you have something, or we'll call a board meeting and discuss it and go from there.
Okay.
The other thing is, there is a new thing coming out by the state, there's an paid leave, Oregon. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's a new program that the state of Oregon is coming out. Unfortunately, it was done in haste. We don't know everything. I budgeted for it because it's supposed to start in '23. So the state was not clear on it. But what we're finding out is the state, it's gonna be like workman's comp, whereby you can go private or you can go with the state. We've checked with SDAO, they're checking on things as well. It would appear, with the best information we have right now, that we could save the district money as well as the employees' money by going private. I don't know why, but that seems to be the way that everything is going. My concern with that is not knowing why or not understanding everything. If I go private, can I go back to the state deal? And I can. If we go private, I can go back to the state, but I have to wait till the time period, 1 year, before you can go back. So based on the best information we have right now, we'll probably go private.
So Don asked me about this, and, my comment was that, special districts has people that are way smarter than any of us about this, and they're monitoring it constantly, and so you just need him to stay in contact with SDAO and to communicate what they say with us before we, make the decision to jump off the cliff.
You were talking to Hagan Hamilton about that?
That's
As I
correct.
read, yeah. So, but it doesn't cover any part-time,
It's everyone.
or does it?
It's everyone.
Is it everyone? Okay. Because I wasn't clear on that when I read the information.
So is the insurance to pay the family leave if somebody has a child, is that? And does that make more sense than being self-insured?
You can't.
Okay.
This is a
You have to
requirement.
go with the state.
All right.
Now, what I have been told, and I'm repeating, but SDO did some checking. What the state told SDAO, that it would take them 6 to 8 months to respond. With the private, they can respond in 7 days.
Okay.
The SDAO, like I said, if someone is trying to use corruption or tried to take advantage of it, they will know within that 6 to 8 days, where it'll already happen if the state does it. So based on all the information that I'm getting right now, it seems safer and easier going with the private. But again, we'll make that decision. I wanted you aware of it as we go through it. And it's something we have to do. It's mandatory, the state's mandating it. But
So just,
been very little work on it.
just keep us updated,
All right,
okay?
that's it.
You forgot about you're not gonna say anything about the 4441 initiative?
Oh, the lunch I owe you?
Don did accumulate a public gambling debt that he will be paying off to me because the Ducks once again beat the Cougars, 4th straight year.
They cooped it.
Just wanted that noted, is all.
All right.
All right. Staff reports, you will get verbal brownie points from the chair based on brevity. Julie.
I was just gonna say that, do you guys have any questions for me? Been kind of a long night. I know Casey's got a wedding on Saturday.
I like Matt's ponies.
His recreation class up at the.
Yeah, I know that was kind of cool. He's doing some really creative stuff with little kids. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, TSS Photography,
Mm-hmm.
they are wonderful people. And so they do these pony parties privately up at their farm. And because we have such, you know, we have so much contact with them with youth sports, he came up with the idea, and so they've been full, absolutely full. It's really, really neat. And that esports thing has really taken off too. It's kind of an interesting sport, I guess, but it's legit. So we're busy though. Fall's our busiest time of year. We've got 1,000 kids playing sports, and CARE's full. And Bart, thank you. That was a great email the other day. We were able to help a family in need, and that's what's so great. That's what community is all about. And we were able to jump on that, and that little girl's all squared away.
The district really appreciates that too.
Yeah, and that was a really neat turn of events for that little family. So
I have a quick question for you when we're done.
I hear there's a new class called Happy Feet at Tom Gill Park.
Don't go running off. So,
Okay. Yep.
all right. Brian.
Parks are also busy. We touched on a few of the activities that we've been doing there, especially with the pool, and then the ball fields, and the golf course. Big transition happened since the last board meeting. Kids went back to school, so the majority of our labor staff went back to school too. So you see a big drop off there. That's always challenging, and it happens every year, so you're always aware of it and you plan for that. Some things you don't plan for is your facilities manager blowing his ACL out and out for a year. It's a huge hit for us. Richard's picked up a lot of the slack there, so that's been very helpful. My right-hand person, Brooke, who was trained and developed to run crews in the district on the landscape aspect, gave her 2-week notice Monday, so that's gonna be a big hole to fill also. But we're up for the task. Everybody here has got experience on which end of a shovel to use and everything else. But, so we'll get through that. It has, I emphasized that at the last board meeting, it helped tremendously in leveling the playing field with the raise of the minimum wage that we could start people at. So that actually put us, in the pool with everybody else. So we can compete for talent that way. So I feel a lot better knowing that, looking for help than if we were still treading water like a lot of other businesses are. So I feel good about that going forward. Just transitioning with all the stuff going on. It's always busy. That's about it. If you guys have any questions, I'm here for you.
Brian not only gets to plant flowers, he gets to do buildings and all kinds of pools and all the good stuff. Thank you.
Jim might be interested. I'm going to, first time in 3 years, they're finally opening up in-live conferences, so I'm going to my ISA Urban Forestry Conference in Coeur d'Alene tomorrow morning. So I'm looking forward to that.
That'd be great.
It's really good. I think it's a good thing for the district to have as much education as we can, because trees are the answer, and that's a big line item for the district. And if we know it or not, we can sit down and talk about those numbers someday, that we have to be planning for the future there. As that old saying goes, that 20 years ago was the best time to plant that tree, but if you can't do it then, do it now.
I did notice that some of the oaks are growing down on 219 property, which was great to see. I know that Pizzadera's planted about 3,000 of those things. So.
Yep, those are near and dear to our hearts. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We will try to have the meeting over in time for you to leave. So, R. Scott.
Last week, we verified and sanded the greens and tees, and the greens are recovering, and we're gearing up to core and sand the fairways.
Okay. Is Kellen online?
No.
He's in Hawaii.
Oh, good for him.
So no.
He's at a wedding in Hawaii.
Good excuse, I guess. Heidi, do you have anything you want to tell us?
You said you'd go for short. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I pay our debts on time, and that's it.
Thank you. Richard.
What do you want to hear? How long
Nothing.
do you want this? All right, we're good.
Kat?
Yeah, we're busy, but good things. And I wanted to mention, you may remember Quentin Comas. Quentin is now going to do an internship with us for the trails, GIS mapping all of our trails, starting in Bob and Crystal Riley Park and then continuing with the rest of them. So I went out with him and Russ on Gators and got them all set up with that, and that's going to help us a lot. It's going to help us with the signage situations when we get there as well. That's enough for now.
All right. Does the board have any comments about the citizen comments and or evaluations? Good, sensing none. I'm deeming there is no miscellaneous info. I will entertain a motion
I
for
move that
adjournment.
we adjourn.
Does not require a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned.
Here's